It's Wednesday, September 13th, 2023. Um, I'm in this where I've been since I was little, since they introduced this into my consciousness when I was young, as I was entering one of the public schools that they took me to. So I was on Bible study today with Zion, and we were on a Zoom call. There was a new person, um, and it was interesting. They wanted to speak. Um, we were reading, I suppose, some of the, like, I really don't know the words of the verse because even in the building that I went to, it wasn't, there were fables that they spoke of, but there was no like real heavy studying of any kind, going between public school and home, and then Sunday school, which was the only day I had religious instruction or some word that they use. I don't know. Anyhow, so they were mentioning there was this person on the call who asked about like astronomers. And if I sit in my quiet, like he addressed really the, I suppose she's a priestess or she's the most scholared on the call. I mean, she's got higher education than she went to seminary, so I think that that's religiously significant. But again, these words, they don't teach these things to my kind. Um, so um, they were saying he was asking about astronomers, and in the series of rooms that I've been in, the level of education and the class that they kept me at, um, there was really no speak of astronomy. There was like, um, I mean, there really was no speak of it. Not ancient astronomers, not modern. I mean, there's no such thing as a modern astronomer. I don't know where they exist in the world, um, but it doesn't exist here. It's not in the public schools. It's not something that gets through and into the household as far as conversation. There's no social anymore. Um, and it's been that way since I arrived. I don't know what it was like for my parents. Um, I think my parents were more social than I was ever able to become. Of course, like I was socialized, like I went to school and I followed whatever it was that they allowed. Um, but as far as like who are the world's great mathematicians, and there aren't any, not in my world, not in any world I've ever entered. Um, Greatest mathematician I've ever met would be Guido. That's it. Um, because he's the only one that really stood out as a, he just like Brady in NFL is held to such a high standard. The limited contact I have with humans outside of the house, Guido was one of those ones that just stood out, mathematician wise. Even though we learned straight out of whatever the textbook was for St. Dominic's. Um, so there's that going on. And then, of course, I look in this area, and I have the book that I reference with John Glenn, and the only reason why I even know or could find that was because he was on his name was on a street sign, and they sent me to the Red Cross. But as far as allowing us to know what stars are, what they represent, I wrote this morning, I was watching Space Force, something about system standby, and then there's this interview with Erin. They call Space Force's daughter Erin in this one television fiction on Space Force. And they use this flag. And it says, now Erin is spelled Erin. And Erin's at a monitor speaking to someone, and behind her there's like a referee, there's Space Force General Mark Naird, and then there's this other character, Dr. Mallory. Those are the three behind her, symbolically on this whatever. And she's trying to ace this interview with whoever's on the receiving end of the application while she's interning there. And then they bring up this doctor's appointment. It seems really significant. Only general I've ever known was General George Washington on the dollar bill. Only astronaut I know of by way of a child's book, picture book, is with NASA was John Glenn, even though Neil Armstrong's the household, like the Brady of that brood. Not to upset Aldrins, because he got Buzz Lightyear and Toy Story. He was incorporated in somehow in the local area. They have Buzz O'Rourke at New York City Parks Department. That seems crucial. I see remnants and signs of who were, but again, this goes back generationally. I mean, my grandfather had such supreme intelligence, like superior intelligence to what I've ever been able to have here. I wrote about going into the new millennia, having the children in the new millennia as like human calcaneus calculus, going from being born HCGH into an AIGH year from a flower that was an AIDI, and having a child in the last year of the AI series before entering the new millennia, and then giving birth to the B series. These are crucial gestational markers in space and time. What I don't understand is, in reflection, I can see why it was so important. I also know I'm a different blood type. Again, I hear them throwing out there on some of the trendy, like Star Trek and things. I'm like, never watched it before, never followed it before. Again, when you have scientists with something on their head that looks very phallic, I know it's probably the men's area of business that they like to, at kingdom level, keep quiet and private and not know that that's what they have on their minds at all time, 24 hours 7. I didn't think I had to walk around like a unicorn just to get the correct, like, I mean, Brady's the one who's in the locker room. Why? I mean, and he got special treatment. I didn't think at this level of civilian, as a respectable woman, I mean, they have this story about Maid Marian and Little John and Robin Hood. Again, at Astro Folklore, it seems really important for this area. Um, and knowing what color my mother's birth certificate is and what color my birth certificate is, um, going into this new millennia, and knowing that it really was like like when there's men that walk around with this fallacies on their head, um, and knowing that I really was looking for that unicorn, um, to have these special children with, going in and being special bloodline. I can't be. It brings up other topics like I am not a I'm not xenophilic. I'm xenophobic. Um, I can't take just any blood transfer. They're medical facts. They're known in the local medical community. Um, I can't take animal organs. I just can't. The proteins don't align. I'm a different type. I'm a different species. It's a different whatever word they use in the evolution of whatever we are here. Um, but to withhold the courtship or the partnership or the unicorn itself from being able to find my person and being able to start a life together, that's incredibly important. I don't know why it went out the way that it did. I don't know if these were trailing issues that when my mother arrived, and then, I mean, and I don't know, like when you look to the stars in order to look for signs from the stars, I found Mikhail. Um, they say he's Rome. I mean, he's born in Rome. Does that make him a Roman? Technically, on the books, like I don't really know what that means in American terms. He's his star, though. I mean, he plays an American, um, and even linguistically, how that translates out, I don't. But then I offset that with the possibility of some fight at a Greek restaurant, because I don't know what's going on between the Greeks and the Romans ever in mythology or otherwise. Um, so, like, they didn't teach about the stars, they didn't teach about and then they give something like in an after effect, like when I went to Bible school, about a New Testament and Old Testament. I'm like, I don't know whose storybooks those are. It comes along with a cross, which is where they took me in a language that seems like I should be able to read it, but can I translate it? At times, um, things strike or hit at a different whatever. But why, like, unicorns have been withheld from my ability to be around? I don't know, in a respectful way. This morning on the television on Space Force, they showed Stormin Norman on the cover of Time magazine. Um, and then they talked about taking your arm and twisting it behind your back until you scream uncle. Um, Again, a doctor's appointment and hack, and knowing that my last toilet paper marriage certificate reads Tio on it, which is the Spanish word for uncle, in forced scenarios that I really never wanted to be in, but there's no real choice here. Um, and that came with the 1975, so I don't know what that's about. Um, so it's problematic, but withholding, and then the mother Lindsay, says She's like, oh, no, no, there's astronomers. She's like, there's in New York, where there's Neil Tyson. And I'm like, now I've seen him referenced or mentioned. He looks very Tuskegee. Just so the aerospace industry is aware. I don't know why, again, at an Episcopal level, at an aerospace level, why I'm, I mean, again, I'm United States of America, Federal Reserve note on file with the US Treasury. So I don't understand why at any point in my life or my mother's life that we like, well, for me really it was the relationship of a unicorn was withheld from my being able to obtain that relationship for going into having children, um and in New York. So I don't know like who the real characters are on world stage that walk around with only that on their head all day long, who like makes these decisions like life and death decisions and like birthing schedules and things, but something is seriously off. And I just so happen to be born on a date that converts to H, the alphabet soup of HCGH, um, after having a mother who was an AIDI series, and then going into having these anchors in time and reality in calcaneus calculus, um, which are historically accurate and of significance. Um, so I don't know why anything star related, anything astrological, anything astronomy. Um, I don't know why anything governmental was withheld from my being able to get to. I don't know why communications, it seems, has gone down. Like social order seems to be gone. It doesn't seem to exist any longer. I just put up today, they had the sexiest man alive. I took a photo of it and I put it up and I go, this looks like an international incident. Like, this looks like a problem. If this is what the sexiest men alive, what they're qualifying for, um, because again, I'm concerned about the children that I did have, and their future, and I still have. There's no companionship here whatsoever, um, and that goes into like human cruelty, um, cruel and unusual punishment for lack of companionship, lack of social, like access to socialization and social services and things. Um, but there's a lot of things that are problematic here. Um, but I don't know who's controlling the stars and who's controlling the talent acquisition. I don't know who is. It's all unbeknownst to me, where opportunity and who's offering opportunities. Um, it just seems that a lot of rules are being broken, and I don't know to benefit whom. When like you strip the leadership and analysis, system analysis down to its bare bones and what it was founded and built on, what permission was given to look like and funded by, it's real clear. And then after that, with this expansion of space, it gets real messy. Um, and then to know that like all the health issues that I'm now almost like being in a field that all these like chemical components are being introduced into, feeling more like a lab rat than anything, and watching as services and community just erode away, like the pool of people to even socialize with, I mean, they're not familial anymore. It looks like an international crisis every time I try to bring my son to school, or when I try to go to um, Boy Scouts with him, or even just a regular outing. It looks like an international incident everywhere we go. And like there's no like tribal like group for him. Like, I mean, he doesn't even have social norms of being born in some kind of social structure and carrying those same people. My other children didn't have access to that either. um I mean, somewhere between the formalities and the casualties, there's significance in the words spoken. um it's star 1978, star 8378. Nicole Cataruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way universe, galaxies broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361. And I think back to like, they talk about like the ancient times of like when, I guess they refer to that almost as in like a perfect system. Like, who were the scholars that had access to the stars? Who were the ones who could get to high mathematics and engineers? Like, now I know these words just because recent televised prompters were bringing that into a conversation. But for my entire existence here in New York, there was nothing even spoken about as far as astronomy, not current, not past, just whole space issue. Airlines weren't even offered as a career. There was nothing airline related. Um, and then Linda goes in a story the other day about one of my uncles joined, I think he said, the army, and someone broke his back in the army as like an accident. But he never got married, he never had children. I mean, real signs of aggression here. By whom? I don't know. Um, but the withholding of relationships and opportunity really does exist here. And I don't know under whose, I mean, it's General George Washington, which means like my guess is as good as any. I know somewhere someone knows. It's just not a communication I have access to at the moment.